Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to A Cult of Misfits. I'm Matt Owens. If you're new to the podcast, here's what's going down. I enjoy talking about spiritual things, consciousness, the nature of reality, interdimensional beings, ancient Egypt, ancient wisdom, philosophy, all the fun stuff. So if those things interest you as well, check out my other episodes. I talk about all of those things and more. And a big thank you to everybody who's been following the podcast, checking the episodes out, sharing it on social media with fellow misfits. I appreciate you guys. So thank you so much for everybody who's new to the podcast, but also those of you that have been following me for a bit. Not in a creeper way. I love you guys. I know you're following me. That's all right. I'm into it. It's fine. So thank you to everybody who's been along this journey with me. And tally ho, I'm enjoying these conversations. So if you want to support me, a great way to do it, I want to start monetizing the podcast. I'm just going to lay it out for you. I want to start doing advertising on here, but that can't happen until I have a certain number of followers and subscribers, whatever. So it's free of charge. You'd be doing me a huge solid if you could follow me or subscribe to me on whatever platform you're listening to me on currently. And once those numbers reach a certain threshold, then I can begin monetization. So that's the plan. So if you want to help me out in that endeavor, I would greatly appreciate it if you could follow and subscribe and share and do all of the, all those things. I was going to say stupid things, but let's not judge it. So I appreciate you guys for following me. Today, what I want to talk about, here's what's on my mind. I want to talk about free will. I've been listening to a lot of neurosurgeons and neuroscientists and just all the brain people, okay, guys, talking about the brain and free will and personality and all of those things. So I want to get into that a bit, which is super interesting. Fate and destiny and all the, epic topics. And I want to round it out by talking about seeking validation from loved ones in our lives. So I want to talk about that because that's on the forefront of my mind this week, and that's what we talk about here. So before we dive into neuroscience, I have to admit something to you. First of all, I grew a mustache. Do they have a mustache is anonymous? I guess it's not that anonymous because it's obviously I have a mustache, guys. But I'm just looking for some sort of community and validation, I suppose. See, that's what we're talking about this for. I'm seeking validation for my handsome mustache, guys. I feel real handsome, and I've never had a mustache in my life. I've always kind of had, it wasn't like a 5 o'clock shadow. It was more like a 7:30 shadow. But it was kind of a beard, and I liked it. I feel good, but when you feel the change, you feel the change. So I shaved it all down to the skin, which I haven't done since I was about 18 years old. Got out the razor and the shaving cream and whittled all of my whiskers away, leaving nothing but a freaking gorgeous lump of hair on my upper lip. That is my mustache. So trying it out, feeling real good. I even I'm kind of grow my sideburns out a bit too. We're kind of going full 70s this month. So, my kids, they're not completely on board with the mustache, and that's okay. Mustaches take time. So that's all right. Everybody just needs a little bit of time to warm up to the mustache, myself included. So, that's the first thing I have to admit. And the second thing I have to admit is I'm kind of in a grumpy mood today, and I like to challenge myself anytime I can. And so one of the ways I do that is not just recording these podcasts when I'm in a fun mood, right? I don't have a regular schedule that I release these. I just kind of when I feel led to hit record, I hit record, and that's how I do it. I've tried getting regimented about it, and I'm going to do, one podcast a week, or I'm going to do it every Wednesday by 3 p.m., and that just doesn't work for me. So when I just have the freedom it's freedom I've given myself, right? This is sort of what I'm cultivating in my own life, is just the freedom to do what I want, how I want it. So, sometimes it's tempting because of social media. You don't want to show people your ugly side, right? And so part of me challenging myself and pushing myself outside that comfort zone is recording podcasts when I'm kind of in a fucking bad mood. So that's what's happening today. It's one of those days where, if I'm being honest with you, every sound is driving me fucking crazy. Of course, like I go to hit record and there's like a dog barking in the distance that's just like really fucking loud, but I'm sure you guys can't even hear it. So it doesn't matter. It really set me off. I'm sitting here recording this in my car in a parking lot. And, every time an electric vehicle backs up, it makes that grinding sound or that whirring sound or whatever the hell that sound is that car makers decided was a pleasant sound when an electric car is backing up. It completely floors me. And I have to tell you, my nerves are frayed today, guys. And the sound of those vehicles backing up, I just miss the good old beeping. Like, when a truck is backing up, that beeping sound, I'm okay with that. I know what's happening. That guy over there is backing up. It's very clear what's happening. But when I hear that woo, like that blender sound that electric vehicles make when they back up, it's so jarring and grating to my nerves. And I don't know why, because it's not even that loud. It sounds like it's like an anti-grav technology, like it's trying to hover, but it's like a little too heavy to get off the ground, and it's just like, and these are the things that are driving me nuts today, guys. So I'm not all zen and balanced at all times, and that's why we talk about it. So a Zen master I am not. Some days are easier than others. Other days, I just want to flip a Tesla. I just want to flip a Tesla with my Hulk anger. They've got airbags in there. They're fine, guys. I don't mean any harm on the driver, right? But let's get some standardization on those noises for the vehicles backing up, guys. Okay, it feels real good that I've gotten that off my chest. I'm still a bit grumpy, but it's been reduced by 10%. So we're going to forge forward here, guys. I've been listening to a lot of neurosurgeons and just, doctors and a lot of like university professors, things of this sort, right? Learning about the brain, because I'm really interested in free will, and that's what we'll get into in a second. But I got to tell you, it's so hard listening to most of these people because I feel like they're so used to, preaching is the wrong word. They're used to lecturing. They're used to just talking at people, and oftentimes it can be kind of droning and guys, I'm having trouble with words here today. I told you I'm in a bad mood, and just the fact that I can't think of these words is kind of pissing me off a little bit. I'll be honest with you. Just being real. So it could be boring is what I'm getting at. Listening to these guys talk about the brain, I feel like I'm hearing a lecture in university again, and it's just like making me want to fall asleep. But I am very interested in the subject matter that they're talking about. So I have to sort of like pick apart what they're trying to say. They often use words that I don't understand or are going into concepts that I don't quite understand. Just when I think I'm smart, I start listening to one of these yahoos, and the universe has a way of putting me in my place. When I get a little too big for my britches, like, oh, I'm pretty smart. And then I listen to, these neurosurgeons or an astrophysicist talking about the nature of reality. And I'm like, all right, well, my brain is melting. So, it's got a limit. Part of the reason why, I'm a bit off this week, is because I'm just burnt out. I've been listening to a lot of these. I'm just always wanting to dig and go deeper and down these rabbit holes and learn and soak up that sweet gnosis, that knowledge. And I've learned over the last several years that this is not the first time it's happened, by the way, and it will not be the last, I'm sure, but I'm trying to work on recognizing when I have that burnout, recognizing when I've been hitting the research a little too hard, learning about ancient Egypt nonstop, and it just, whatever the topic is, it can at some point become just overwhelming and too much, and my whole system needs a break. And so I'm learning to recognize those symptoms when that happens in my own life in order to find that balance, and recognizing that, it's okay. It's not, don't beat myself up for it. Like, this is just how I operate. I know how I operate, and this is what I like to do, is dive real deep, and I'm learning to practice reeling it back in, right? Not going so far down the rabbit hole that I get lost for a year or whatever, it's real easy to do. It's real slippery. And so I'm learning to put on my cleats and learning to climb back out of that rabbit hole, right? To dig my way out sometimes. But that's part of the process. So I've been trying to wade through all of this neurological information that I just find fascinating. And I've been listening to these, scholars and professors and stuff talking about, first of all, whether or not this is all a simulation. I've talked about it before, and it's nothing new, but I talk about it frequently because I feel like it's really important that we talk about it. I think that it's really important to not just say, yeah, that's a kooky idea. Like it goes beyond just something you talk about when you're, smoking some weed. Like, hey man, wouldn't that be crazy if this was like a simulation or a video game, bro? Like, it's beyond that. And I've listened to those people. I've listened to the stoners. But I've also listened to experts. I've listened to scientists and theologians and philosophers and, spiritual people, and all of these people. I feel like it's very rare that all of those people kind of agree on something, right? The scientists and the spiritual religious people all sort of, there's a lot of agreement. I shouldn't use the word all. There's a widespread agreement amongst many of these, philosophies and beliefs and scientists that this is all an illusion, that none of this is real, that we're living in a simulation. And I talk about it so often because it really has started to affect how I view the world, right? And like, well, okay, this is a simulation, but how does that affect my day-to-day life? And of course, that's what I think about, is what kind of effect does that have on me? And there's just for me, it's an overwhelming amount of evidence pointing to this is all an illusion, that this is literally, here's what I think. I'll just give you a quick rundown. I think that a divine being that is beyond our comprehension, that we can call God, created this universe out of itself, right? Like from a fragment of itself, a sliver of itself, a fractal, whatever you want to say. It has taken this bit of pure light, pure energy, and created the known universe. I believe that same divine being also created all life on earth. And I think that divine being is currently experiencing life through these 3D human avatars. It's as if the divine being, I hate to call it God, that's why I keep saying divine being, that this divine being has put on like a VR headset, for example, and is currently playing all of the characters simultaneously. I think that God is playing all humans, experiencing all human lives, past, present, and future simultaneously. And I think that that's what this universe is all about. I think that that's why if you zoom in too far with a high enough powered technology here on Earth, the simulation starts to fall apart. This is mainstream science. This is not weird stuff. Stuff like, the impossible distance that all known planets and galaxies and, other solar systems exist so far away from us. That's interesting to me, right? It just lends itself to like, well, perhaps this is a simulation. All of the experiments that tell us that things only come into existence, things only are here in the 3D and solid, materialized solidly when it's being observed or interacted with. So anyway, there's a long list of reasons, of evidence, scientific and otherwise, that sort of all point to this idea that none of this is real. Okay? So that helps me to talk about it because then I don't take things so seriously, right? It's a little bit less stressful for me when I talk about it and really work my way through it. Like, perhaps we are just divinity experiencing its own creation, right? That we're just these avatars, and that the human avatar that the divine being that we are, perhaps, has created has a brain to operate this avatar, right? And the brain oftentimes gets confused and thinks that it is the thing that's animating it, right? Spirit or God or whatever. And so the brain gets confused and says, no, I'm Matt Owens. I'm a white guy that lives in America. I have these family members, and this is my life, and this is where I went to school. And our whole life we think that that's who we are, but I believe it's something deeper than that. So I'm fairly sure, right? I never want to be 100% or say that this is the way that it is, but I'm fairly convinced at this point that this is all a simulation, that this is all just, really, that this is just like a movie is a better way to think of it, that we're currently experiencing our brains, our human avatars' brains' interpretations of our environment, right? What we're really responding to is, I heard on a podcast, somebody said that like it's a series of cascading now moments, just now, just like a film strip, right? Where the whole thing is an illusion. We all understand that the people up on the screen, it's not actually people up there. It's a visual representation of 24 frames per second, and our human eyes are tricked into believing that we're seeing people up on that wall in the film, right? And so in that same exact way, I believe that's exactly what's happening here in the 3D realm, in this material universe that God has created. Everything is an interpretation of what our brain believes that it's interacting with. Because if you think about it, the brain can't see outside of itself. It has no eyeballs, right? It's wholly reliant on interpreting the sensory data that our fingers and our nose and our eyes and our ears and our senses plug into it. So it's just taking its best guess as to what we're currently looking at or what we're currently hearing, right? And there are many ways through various experiments that you can find online. I don't have them all memorized, right? But there's just all these quirky experiments that you can trick the brain into thinking something is happening or it's seeing something that it's not. All the visual, come on, what am I trying to say? Come on, brain. See, it knows that I'm talking about it. And it's like, oh, well, fuck you. I'm going to fail you right now. It's like HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey. My brain is always trying to take over the ship. And it's mutiny up here, guys. What was I getting at? So the human brain is just trying its best to interpret what the hell is going on. And so the brain can, with visual tricks, that the brain can be tricked. Or there's this one experiment where you put one hand under the table and put a rubber hand up on the table where your hand should be, and then you rub a feather or a paintbrush across the fake hand, and your brain sees this and thinks that it's your arm that's being touched. Anyway, lots of weird ways to trick the brain. For how sophisticated it is, it's quite simple to trick it. And so I'm explaining all of this because then we start talking about whether or not this reality is actually real, and science points to it's not. It's actually just we're in this soup of energy, call it, or light, you can call it. And solid matter is simply our brain interpreting something that isn't actually there. And so then I start thinking about free will. And I know there's lots of philosophers out there that have an opinion, but I wanted to hear from people who study the brain. I want to hear from neuroscientists. What do they have to say about free will? I've been listening to a lot of Sam Harris. If you're interested in the subject, check out Sam Harris. He's on podcasts frequently. He's a neurosurgeon or whatever, and he is of the firm belief that we have no free will based upon his experiments and his knowledge of how the human brain works. That free will is simply another thing that is just an illusion. The ancients say, oh, this is an illusion. Well, does that include free will? And I think the answer to that is yes. And I think that that's hard for most people to wrap their mind around, myself included. I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around it. I mean, I get it intellectually and philosophically, but like, what implications does that have for my real life, like my day-to-day life, knowing that, okay, I guess there is no free will. It's sort of a bummer because it takes away your agency, right? It's like, no, I have all these accomplishments in my life, all these things that I did in my life, all these things I'm proud of. And now you're telling me that it was just part of the program? Like that's upsetting, to put it mildly, right? Like that's upsetting to the human because we've been programmed and trained this whole time to believe that we have free agency. And I'm questioning that now because as I've been listening to these smart people talking about how the brain works, there's just further evidence that we don't have free will. There's a lot of there's experiments that have been done that show that if you're just doing a simple action like pushing a red button, that the brain fires to put your finger down on the red button, and then milliseconds after the fact, your brain fires and says, hey, let's push the red button. Like your brain is lagging behind what's actually happening by several milliseconds or nanoseconds or whatever. And so every action that we take has been shown scientifically many times that every action we take is predetermined. Now, before I started diving into this, I believe in fate and I believe in things like destiny, that there are certain events in our lives, certain people we're meant to meet in our life, like a spouse or a job opportunity comes along and that's part of my destiny, or, I'm fulfilling my purpose and that's part of my destiny. And it was fate that we met that one day, or fate that this or that happened, right? So if I'm willing to accept that there are certain events that happen in my life that are predestined and predetermined, that are fate or destiny, then it's not that big of a stretch to then say, okay, well, if some events in my life are predetermined, then perhaps all of them are, right? From what I had for lunch today to what I'm doing tomorrow is all preset. And if you think about it from a non-3D linear human way, that past, present, and future are all happening simultaneously, then we tend to think about the past as not being here anymore because it's already happened, or the future isn't here yet because it hasn't happened yet. But in a very real way, again, this is science. It gets real deep into quantum theory and stuff like that. But a lot of it's just way over my head sort of a thing. But suggesting that all future events and all past events are currently occurring right now. It's a real mind bender, right? So, yeah, and when I start thinking about these things, it starts to melt my brain a bit, to be honest with you. It starts to kind of overheat, but it also puts me in a place of just frustration. Like, what's the point of any of this, right? Like it sort of takes the fun out of it. It kind of lets the air out of it, like, ugh. So nothing I do matters. Maybe it does in some way I don't understand fully, but like, so I'm just sort of meant to, I feel like I'm being controlled by a higher being, right? Like in a video game or something. Like I'm just being animated by some sort of cosmic divine script that's been written for me or whatever. And it's kind of a bummer. So it sort of puts me in a dark place when I kind of think about these types of things. But I'm not the first person to experience this. And again, it's not the first time I've experienced any of this, but I'm just working my way through it again because it can be difficult. It's challenging. It's discombobulating. It's stripping away of everything we think we know. And so I've been wrestling this last week or two with the idea that everything is predetermined. I start thinking about just Eastern philosophies and Eastern ways of looking at life. And there's always talk of like just staying in the now moment and, not struggling, to just go with the flow, to just be, to just allow, to just be the observer, right? This is the advice that the ancients have told us, which is extremely challenging to do as a human. Can I get an amen? And so, in conjunction with all of that, I start thinking like, okay, the ancient wisdom tells us all to just chill the fuck out, stop being stressed out and worried all the time, just relax, go with the flow, trust and have faith that everything is unfolding as it needs to unfold, etc., blah, blah, blah is what I fucking hear, right? Like, I don't want to hear that shit. I don't want to hear all that when I'm frustrated or stressed out, or it's like, fuck you, I don't want to hear that. But it's true. I know it's true. Something deep within me knows it's true and recognizes the truth behind it. And so it's hard. It's hard. I talk about, how the brain just sort of thinks that it's this Matt Owens character. I was listening to the actor Terrence Howard. He's a real interesting dude. Nathan sent me, my friend Nathan, I talked to on the podcast. Check out his episodes with me if you're interested. We have really great conversations. He sent me over a YouTube video of Terrence Howard just talking about just the stuff that I talk about, spirituality and questioning everything, and he dives deep into math. He's just a real brilliant guy. Anyway, he was talking about how oftentimes we just play these characters, right? It's who we think we are this whole time. And as an actor, he was explaining how easy it is to fall into those characters, right? Characters like the Joker, with I can't remember his name right now, but the guy that played the Joker and then ended up killing himself eventually because it just kind of got into his head, right? You start sort of believing that you're that character, and then it can kind of fuck with you, right? Because I feel like the mind is very malleable and very susceptible to that type of thing, and so easily programmable, right? And so it's very easy to be not duped into that sort of thing, but we're very vulnerable, right? I was just talking to somebody about this very topic, about what do I believe? What do I not believe? Am I being gullible here, or we're all susceptible to it, and so whether or not you get lost, like method acting, like Jim Carrey did on Man on the Moon, just getting lost in the Andy Kaufman character, and he didn't break character for the length of the movie, I believe. Just staying so deep into character, and we do that as well. I got real deep into the Matt Owens character, right? That's who I am. What do you mean I'm something different than that? You're out of your mind. It's absurd to think different, and especially if we have had that belief since childhood, right? Or since birth even, this belief that that's who we are. And so it's very difficult to break free from that, right? And so then I start thinking about what kind of a world, what implications would that have in our collective reality on this planet if we all came to the understanding that this is all an illusion, a movie, a simulation, whatever you want to call it, and none of us have free will. So what implications does that have? I was listening to a podcast about it, and they were talking about how compassion would come into play, right? How you see people that are struggling or having a hard time or dealing with difficult things, and rather than blaming them, like drug use, for example, or just these things, these thorns in our side, these challenges that we have in this life, and rather than condemning people for their actions, recognizing that their actions weren't their own fault, right? That they were just acting because that's what their script says. That's what the divine script is telling them to do. And that's just a part of what's meant to happen. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. Letting all of these people just do whatever they want because, I guess we don't have free will, so I can just go and murder people that make me mad or whatever. It's always natural to go to the extreme, but I don't think it works that way. And I think that if we really realized that this is true, if it is true, right? It's not in stone here, but everything's kind of pointing to it. And it's kind of like I say it like, hey, I hate to tell you, but free will is just an illusion too, right? That everything is just happening for a reason. I use that reasoning though to get me through a lot of dark and difficult times where I just have to tell myself that and have faith and trust in the divine, some sort of a process, right? Trust the process, trust the process, trust the process. At some point, it's like, fuck you. I don't want to hear that right now. I don't want to trust the fucking process. I'm scared, right? But if we learn to let go of those fears and learn to trust the process, right? Trust God, trust the divine, trust our guides, angels, whatever you want to say, to lead and guide us through this life, to navigate us through whatever this thing is. And just know that everything is happening for a reason. Everything is happening right on time, right? Nothing's late, nothing's early. Everything's happening as it should, right? That's also a tough pill to swallow. I was just watching Three Body Problem, that new series on Netflix, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's okay, I'll say. It's kind of, I don't like to critique other people's art, but it's okay. I love the concept, though, so check it out if you're interested in sort of sci-fi stuff like that. But anyways, I won't get into it. But anyway, there's this one scene where, let me just say, I don't want to go into the whole episode, but or the concept, rather. It's just, I haven't finished the series either, but it's like aliens are coming here from 4 light years away and humans are kind of panicking and freaking out and there's just sort of unrest and chaos. Like, what do you mean aliens are coming? And they're telepathic and just a lot of weird stuff like that. But anyways, in this one scene, there was a bunch of guys with guns and soldiers that were storming into this building that held a bunch of religious people in there, let's just say, right? And everybody was panicking in the crowd because they don't know what's going on and everybody's freaking out and there's guns and it's a scary situation, right? And the leader of the religious movement, essentially, I'm just paraphrasing here, she just basically said, like, everybody calm down. Whatever happens is the Lord's will. It's what's meant to be. If there are soldiers here to take us, then let them take us. And all of them, everybody in the room calmed down and just passively sat cross-legged on the ground and just accepted what was happening, right? If we're meant to be captured by these soldiers, we're meant to be captured by these soldiers. If we're meant to be shot and killed, we're meant to be shot and killed. That's what's meant to happen. And that's really hard to do, right? But I'm starting to question these things in my own life, and I think that is the correct way to wrap my mind around it. At least for right now, that's where I'm at. Like, for example, when I just letting things be, acceptance, right? That the Eastern philosophy talks about a lot of just accepting things as they are. Can you accept this uncomfortability that you're in right now? Can you accept that you don't have everything that you want in your life right now? Can you accept the bad things that are happening in your life, etc.? So as I take my dog for a walk every day, I often, sweet Chi-Chi, by the way, Cheech, I'm kind of worried that something's going to eat him, right? I'm reluctant to take him off the leash when we go to the park because then he's going to run in the bushes and there's going to be we have coyotes around here, bobcats or whatever the fuck. And I'm just scared that something's going to eat Chi-Chi. And just in the last couple of weeks, as I'm sort of wrestling with these big existential kind of beliefs and thoughts and stuff like that everything happens for a reason, I've started letting him off his leash more often because I recognize that I have a fear there. And if you're new to Matt Owens, I like to run towards my fears. So if something scares me, I'm going to do more of that because I don't want to be scared of it anymore. And eventually I'll get over it and it's manageable. And so I have a fear of letting him off the leash because I don't want him to get or hit by a car or whatever, right? So I've been letting him off the leash more often because it scares the shit out of me because I think he's going to die and it's just exposing myself to that. And I have to remind myself the whole time that, look, if he's meant to die today, he's meant to die today. If he gets hit by a car, he's going to get hit by a car. It's either going to be a freak accident or because I let him off the leash. He could be on the leash, off the leash. If he's meant to die, he's meant to die. And so this is how I frame everything now, or at least as you can see, I'm struggling to frame it that way. And this is part of the reprogramming process of just like training myself not to be afraid of it, accepting that if he dies today, he dies today. Same goes for my kids. I used to be super scared out of my mind going and riding bikes with them in the neighborhood because I just thought like, well, they're going to get hit by a car and die. Scared out of my mind. And I had to let that go in the same way I had to let Chi-Chi be more free, right? Off the leash. Is just say like, look, we're not being reckless here. We're not doing things willy-nilly. I just like to work in willy-nilly anytime I can. We're not just being reckless and willy-nilly here. But like, look, if the kids are meant to get hit by a car, they're meant to get hit by a car. That's that. Like, I can try to prevent it as much as I can. I can do the best that I can, but at some point, it's in God's hands. You know what I'm saying? So I'm literally trying to live my life like that and extend that to just everything is in God's hands. Everything is taken care of. Everything is accounted for. Everything that I'm currently experiencing is what I meant to be experiencing. If it wasn't, then I wouldn't be experiencing it. You hear me? So it's like, these are the things I have to constantly remind myself of just acceptance. So it's really hard getting myself to these places mentally, but I'm just sort of walking my way through it because it's just, it's what I'm working through this month, right? And perhaps you can relate to it. So I wish, it'd be great if there was free will. That would be cool. But why do I need to have free will, right? Why? I'm always digging deeper. Why? Why do I need to think that? Why can't I just accept that there's no free will, perhaps? Why can't I just accept that this is a part of my destiny? What I had for lunch is a part of my destiny. The next chapter of my life is part of my destiny, all of the above. So, let's move on. I want to talk about something else that has just been on my mind a lot, and this is just me kind of being vulnerable and talking about some of the stuff I'm just struggling with a bit and working my way through, and it's seeking validation from people in our lives. It's nothing new. I've sought validation from people my whole life, and today I want to talk about seeking validation specifically from my dad and how I'm working through that. The last few years as a part of my journey, my blossoming, oh, that's cute, part of my blossoming and discovering who I am and doing the inner work and things of that nature, I realized that I cared a great deal what people thought about me. And I got to a place where I wanted to change that. Assuming that now suddenly I have free will and I can change things in my life, right? Like, this is all like, it's pointless talking about changing our lives if there's no free will, but here we are. So life is a paradox, guys. Get over it. So I found that I cared a great deal what other people thought about me, specifically those in my family or my close circle of friends and loved ones. They carried more weight, obviously, and I cared what they thought about me more than a stranger, for example. So part of what I was working through is regaining my own confidence, learning to love certain aspects of myself, and building up that confidence enough that I just stopped caring what people think about me. And I've talked about this in previous episodes. If you're interested, check that out where I dive a little bit deeper on some of those topics. But I got myself to a place where I didn't care what 95% of people thought about me. Strangers, loved ones, family, it didn't matter. I got myself to a real good place where I didn't care what almost everyone thought about me. But there was still a couple that were lingering that I definitely did care what they thought about me, and one of those is my father. And that's something that I'm still working through because to be honest with you, it bothers me that I still care what he thinks about me, but it's so ingrained since childhood, since birth, seeking that validation, seeking that acceptance. And I've sort of struggled and wrestled with that my whole life. I was never into sports, just like my oldest kid is just not into sports. And my dad was very into sports, still is. And, I'd play volleyball with my sister. And, I've got 3 sisters, but he'd play volleyball and sports with my sisters and stuff. But not me. not me. I just want to talk about movies and, I was in the audio visual club and stuff in high school. And so it was just the things that interested me were of no interest to my dad and vice versa. So, there was always that struggle, and I always was trying to seek his acceptance in terms of doing things that he enjoyed doing or things of that nature. Right. And so I found myself, even up until recently, struggling with trying to break free from that thought pattern that I have, because none of this is his fault or there's no blame or any of that. This is all my own internal mechanisms, and I'm just sort of giving you a peek behind the curtain what I'm struggling with and dealing with, because I think it could be useful to somebody who's also dealing with the same thing that I am. So I realized that I want to try to change that and to change the way that I react to my dad. And he often will share his very strong opinions with me about how he thinks I should or shouldn't be living my life, which I know is a common thread in many people's families. He likes to tell me that I'm not living life according to how he thinks I should be living my life. He likes to tell my children that I am not living life correctly and that I'm on the wrong path. So that's cool. To be honest with you, it evokes a lot of anger within me that he is pushing his beliefs upon me and my kids, which normally I've gotten myself to a place where I don't care what your opinion is or your belief is. Everybody is open to have their own opinion about God or about me personally or about the nature of the universe or whatever, right? Everybody can have their own opinion. I love talking to people. I love hearing all sides and different perspectives, but this one hits a little deep, and this one goes straight to my heart, and that's why I get so emotional when I am confronted with it, is because it runs deep. And I don't like people telling me how to live my life, and so I react very strongly against that. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. I don't want anybody telling me what to worship or which college to go to or telling me how to live my life. I'm not a fan of that, and I react very negatively when anybody tries to do it, especially when it's my dad. And so it used to make me very frustrated and upset when he would tell my kids that I'm living life wrong, like telling them that their father is living life wrong and on the wrong path. In the same way that it used to really bother me when the teachers in my kids' school would be teaching them certain curriculum about, social studies or the government or whatever. I used to get real riled up about it, but I'm trying to this is what I'm working through. And as I'm getting myself to a better place where I'm recognizing that I want to expose myself and expose my kids to as much alternate theories and beliefs as I can, because that will make them and me more open-minded in nature, right? Where I want them to be exposed to as many different belief systems as possible, and then they can come to their own conclusions as to what to think in terms of religion or politics or whatever, right? So what used to make me furious about their teachers or the school system or my dad, cramming propaganda down our throats, is recognizing that, look, that's just his opinion. That's just their opinion, right? People like my dad, for example, believe that there is only one path. There's one path to being successful. There's one path to being a good dad. There's one path to living your life. And you can go a little bit outside of the lane, but basically stay in your lane. Don't go outside the lane. If you don't, you're essentially a loser. And so I've felt like a loser. My dad hasn't come out and specifically called me a loser, but essentially that's where we're at. And so I feel like I'm always in this mode of trying to prove to my dad or prove to these people in my life that I'm not a loser, right? I often did that a lot with my ex-wife, where I was always constantly trying to prove to her that I'm not a loser, essentially, right? And so part of this reprogramming for myself is recognizing that I'm not a loser, right? That's just a story that I've chosen to believe. Yes, because people in my life have made me feel that way, but also that's on me, right? I can either choose to react or respond in a certain way. I can choose to react and respond and get offended or hurt or get angry. That's all on me, right? People are well within their rights to have opinions about how I live my life or which path is right or which path is wrong, right? I dealt with that a lot in terms of religion, having many of the religious people in my family telling me essentially that I'm going to hell, right? That I'm condemned. And that the stuff that I'm dabbling in and reincarnation and all things of this nature, right, are evil and bad and that sort of thing. So I'm getting myself to a place where I don't have to defend myself to people, specifically my dad, right? Where I don't have to defend myself to people, where I can just say, you know what? That's okay. That's just your opinion, right? You lived your life. You only know what you know, right? You learned what your parents taught you, who learned what their parents taught them, and on and on and on, right? And so I tend to cause a bit of a frazzle within certain family members' minds because I'm doing it wrong, right? Because they only know one way. And so I'm trying to illustrate to anybody that cares that there's more than one way to do things, right? There's more than one way, there's more than one path to victory, to success, right? To happiness. I remember when I was having some gut issues and dietary issues that I was struggling with. I often had people bombarding me with nutritional advice. Well, you got to have ginger, you got to have this, or you got to take that out of your diet, or reduce caffeine, or increase the fat, or decrease this, or everybody had a freaking opinion about it. And it's real hard because you want to listen to everybody. But at some point you have to say, okay, no. Thank you for everybody's opinion. Got it. But I'm going to do my own thing here. Right. And, it's just about recognizing that there's more than one path. There's more than one way, right? Victory can happen in many different ways. And so I have to decide in my own life, what does success mean to me, truly? And then using that rubric, that metric system for myself, and not caring about anybody else's metrics, right? Their metrics for success, or metrics for being a good father, or metrics for how to live one's life. And so I'm in the process of, as I said, I'm still working through this shit, but I'm in the process of discarding all of the other rubrics and metrics and just creating my own, what works for me, and celebrating those successes that I have, even if nobody is celebrating them with me because nobody understands what the fuck I'm doing in my life. Right? Just celebrating it, patting myself on the back. Or when I reach that goal or hit that metric, I'm like, good job, success, we did it. Even though other people might not be able to see it, or other people don't congratulate you or don't encourage you, right? I was often finding that I was looking for encouragement from my dad specifically, but I was looking constantly for this encouragement that I was on the right path, this validation, and I had to learn to let go of that. And that's what part of this process is just learning to let go of that. And it's getting me to a much better place mentally. So these are just some of the things that I'm, working through, struggling with this week, and thought it might be insightful to talk about it, just to sort of work my own way through it mentally. But also because, it may resonate with somebody out there who's also dealing with something similar. So if that's you, cheers to us and our, our validation issues that we're working through. Let me just reassure you that you're on the right path, whether or not the voice in your own head or your parents or somebody close to you is telling you that you're on the wrong path. Let me tell you that that's incorrect. You are currently on the right path. You're exactly where God wants you to be. Everything is happening in your life for a very specific cosmic reason that you may or may not understand at this point in time. But I see you, and I think that you're doing a great job. Love you.